Hey everyone, welcome back to Tracer Burnout. I'm Roger.
And I'm Dan.
And we are happy to be back in our home studio here.
Yep.
We also are very happy to, if you haven't heard to this point, we have an ongoing fundraiser with our friends over at Heroes Harvest at this point. We're helping them raise some money to buy some hunting blinds. So think like a small tent. It's camouflage. Mm-hmm. These blinds are very helpful for hunting, of course, but also these in particular have a large opening on them. So it's great for disabled veterans, whether they be on canes or with
elderly, wheelchairs.
It gives them good access to get in and out of these things. It's also nice. They're obscured, obviously, so if they need to fidget and move or do whatever, they're not giving away their positions. So really great thing to have for a hunt. So we're helping our friends over there raise some money, and we appreciate all of your help to this point.
Yeah, helping those less mobile veterans get out there and get back to nature.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. All right, now, friend of the show, Jimmy, sent us a gift.
Jimmy.
Or gifts, plural. He made us these amazing wooden coasters. Solid wood, about a half an inch thick. I don't know what type of wood, but has the logo and our motto burned right into it. Beautiful work, Jimmy. Amazingly well done. You should follow my advice and go into business for yourself. Now, Jimmy also sent us a couple of coins that he also made.
Very nice.
They're his old company coins from his time as a first sergeant.
Very nice.
So, you cannot see it, but they're about the size of a Kennedy $50, although about 3 times as thick. Also solid wood, and beautifully detailed. Amazing craftsmanship.
The artisanal craftsmanship of these are fantastic, but I have to ask, Dan.
Mm-hmm.
The skull that is on this, would this happen to be in the likeness of one of his company commanders?
You know, Jimmy's a pretty laid-back dude, so probably not.
We'll go with that, yes.
Although I don't know his company commanders. Maybe they were like you, in which case it's possible. But thanks, Jimmy. You are officially forgiven for not naming any of your children after me.
That's fair. That is
yes. Fair. I haven't even done that for you.
Also, our good friends over at Aerial Resupply Coffee, Mr. Mike. Firewatch. It's my brew of choice. It's a medium roast. It's my favorite. It's my favorite.
I know.
Here comes the lecture. Yes.
No.
Go ahead and tell me I'm wrong. Go ahead.
I'm not. You're allowed to have a favorite, obviously.
You're too kind.
But variety is the spice of life, man. It really is.
I didn't bring it in here, but I actually have the 5-pound bag of the Firewatch at my house.
I've seen it.
It does thud when you drop it. It's good stuff.
It's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. And it's amazing. Go over to aerialresupplycoffee.com. Get you some really great Joe.
Yep.
Use Tracer Burnout as a promo code. Get 10% off. Or you can go over to our website, tracerburnout.com, and there's a banner up at the very, very top on the homepage. Just click on that. That is an affiliate link that will take you there, and we'll get credit for it either way. So you're supporting 2 great veteran-owned businesses and getting a great cup of Joe out of it. And as our good friend Mike over there likes to say, stay caffeinated.
Veterans supporting veterans. Who would have thought?
Also, friend of the show, Justin, a Coast Guardsman up in the Yorktown, Virginia area, provided us with this pretty amazing coin. Here, let me hand that up to you. That's the first coin that I've ever had like that. It is massive and
rather hefty.
It's pretty original too. So
it is. It's got the Virginia outline on there, boat forces, and yeah, that is. That's obviously an oar. What is that? A pike?
That's probably the wrong terminology, and somebody's gonna tell us how wrong we are. But that's fine. Either way, it's a pretty amazing coin, and it's the first one of these that has been sent to us as a show. So, kudos to the Coast Guard and all you other services out there. Let's just say that I'm not angry, but I am disappointed.
Just like your mother and father.
Yeah, it's uncanny, actually. Now that you mention it, yes.
Now, recently we were on the Soul Hygiene podcast with Miss TJ. It is a shorter form podcast, about 30-ish minutes, and she has on a lot of guests with a multitude of life experiences, and they are all on their their separate paths and their own healing journeys. Mm-hmm. So it was really fun. She's really sweet. She's a great listener, and it is a very, very easy podcast to listen to. You won't get emotional about it.
Well, you might.
Well, it might hit you in the feels, I guess, depending on who you're listening to. But she's amazing. She really is.
She's sweet as can be and a great ally to our show.
So go out there and check her out. Yeah. Now, also, last episode we talked about how our show went international.
That's right.
With listeners in Russia and Japan and Germany and, of course, all over the States.
What is the update?
We've gone tropical.
Tropical?
We're in Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico.
Yes. So, keep spreading the show. Keep spreading the love. We appreciate it.
Yes, and we will find our Puerto Rican listeners, and we will be driving down and then hopping on a boat and visiting them very soon.
Yes.
We will not be driving to Puerto Rico, though.
Absurd. And you don't need a passport, too, so that's great.
That is true.
Makes it definitely very, very easy. So, without further ado, Navy veteran, Mrs. Shae Gragg. Hi, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Before we really get started, I have a question, though. Okay? Because your name is Melissa.
Yeah.
But you go by Shae.
Yeah.
Why? Or like how does
Shae is my middle name.
Okay.
My mom loved the name Shae, but couldn't come up with like a middle name that would go with Shae.
Okay.
So I go by my middle name, Melissa Shae.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And then my brother's the same way.
Okay.
He goes
but his name is not Shae.
No.
Okay.
No. Okay. There's only room for one of us.
We asked the tough questions here.
No, I was just curious if it was like a nickname or an acronym or something like that. Because I mean, you're not the first person to ever go by their middle name.
No.
It's not exactly.
It does
uncommon.
make for a lot of confusion.
Okay, but anyway, thank you for joining us, Shae.
Thank you for having me.
You are our second Navy guest.
It's a pleasure.
Our second episode was a Navy corpsman, and some would say that doesn't count. We love you, Bill.
Yes, he's amazing, but he did end up spending so much of his time, especially his Vietnam experiences, with the Marines. Mm-hmm. So, talking to somebody with a completely different set of experiences in the Navy, it's awesome.
For sure.
Perfect. So we start most of our episodes pretty similarly. Mm-hmm. So, Navy background as far as your family or military just in general. What kind of military background does your family have?
It's a long list.
Yeah.
Go through it. Let's go.
Okay. So obviously there's me. I was in the Navy. My younger brother also was in the Navy. We have a first cousin who was in the Coast Guard. So then from there, both grandfathers, mother and father's side, were in the military. My mom's dad was in the Navy. My dad's stepdad was in the Air Force. So my grandpa on my dad's side, his dad was it's either a navigation officer or a bombing officer in World War II, and their plane actually went down in some mountain range in the Pacific. And within, I think, the past 10 years they actually found the wreckage, and somehow there was viable DNA.
They're still...
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it was, I guess it landed in a cold spring and it preserved it.
Okay.
And there were even remnants of pictures of my Gangan.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And so they were able to identify the whole crew and laid them to rest.
That's, on the one hand, very tragic, but at the same time, that's
but
really
awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, but how
really
awesome
cool.
After decades.
Yeah.
To be able to lay them to rest.
Yeah, that's amazing. And then, I mean, obviously, do you guys have the pictures, or does somebody
There's
in your family?
There's a whole report. They buried them, they laid them to rest in Arlington.
Right, but you said that some of the pictures were preserved because of where it was. Were those returned to the family? I think that they gave them back to my grandfather, and then I think they're photocopied into this huge spiral bound report about the whole incident, weather conditions from that day and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. You said that was in the Pacific.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, interesting. They went
remember.
to Arlington or went to the Punch Bowl in Oahu? Because we do have a national cemetery.
The cemetery, yeah, the whole ceremony that they did for them.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's great to hear.
That's awesome.
Yeah, just kind of an interesting note for personnel recovery, things like that, particularly in Asia, whether it be from World War II, also from the Korean War. well, in Vietnam as well. In that, I'm including Cambodia, Laos. We maintain diplomatic relations with a lot of those countries, even if they're not great. One of the main reasons why, yes, we want to be friends with everybody just for geopolitics, but also it's so we can have that open door with a lot of these countries. And so for these recovery missions that we still do, because there are even times where things will kind of soften a little bit with the North Koreans, just long enough, and then they'll give us some of our remains back.
Yeah.
And we'll negotiate some stuff with them, and then we'll be able to repatriate those and bring those remains home. So I'm really happy to hear that they were able to do that for your family.
Yeah, it was awesome to read through that whole report.
Yeah,
that's really, really cool. Now, obviously, your family has an extensive Navy background. So your cousin was in the Coast Guard?
Yeah, I have a cousin that was in the Coast
Was he
Guard.
disarmed? Like, did everybody just like say you are dead to us? And no? So the Navy pride in the family is not that serious?
Well, so my grandfather was in the Air Force, and then his dad was in the, what is it, with the Army? The
U.S. Army Air Corps?
The Army Air Corps?
Yeah, that.
Okay, yeah. Yep.
So we have like a little bit of everything, and then my dad was in the Army. So no one, and then I have like an uncle that was in the Marine Corps. So we're kind of all over the place.
Wow.
But yeah, he was the first in the Coast Guard, but
So
no one gave him any.
it's really just about service.
Yeah.
That's
And then,
really cool.
So Coast Guard cousin, his dad was also in the Army.
Has anybody started pushing their children or the next generation to the Space Force?
No, my son kind of talks about it.
Well, then you'll really have everything covered.
I don't. My he's kind of quirky. I mean, he is a lot like me, but I'm like, I don't know if I can handle you. Like, if that's the route you're gonna take, like, I don't know.
No respect for the Space Force?
I mean, like, what even is like?
Oh, I don't know.
What are we doing with that? Does anyone know?
Why couldn't he be like a launch pad technician or something?
You know, he can, whatever he wants to do, I will support it. Okay, but
Picking on the Space Force is a hobby horse of Dan's.
It's true.
we can come make fun of my son with me.
It doesn't have anything to do with the idea of it. It's that nobody knows.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, what
anything about
even
it.
is? Like, what are we doing with that?
I don't even know if they've even had like a basic training class or anything like that.
Of course they have.
Because most of them were reclasses from other branches. I mean, they had like an open fair, like, hey, you're an engineer. Do you want to go and be in the Space Force?
Are they just like,
hey, you're a dental tech. You want to go and
stealing
be
random
in the...
people?
Yeah,
from
pretty
different,
pretty much.
just picking them off.
Yeah, I mean, it was, as far as I know, it was mostly voluntary. Probably as soon as you get into the field, grade officers, and then senior NCOs, it probably wasn't. It was probably like, here's your orders. You're in the Space Force now. But
Hey, that retirement pension is the exact same.
it's true.
I'm just saying.
I mean, they're not telling us much. It might be way better.
That is
she's
also,
got a good point.
That is also true. I mean, if you go to, say, like 50 years from now, you could claim hazardous duty pay because you went to the International Space Station. Because, I mean, your rocket could blow up or something. I don't know.
That in close quarters with the Ruskies. So
It's also true.
we digress.
So, your family has an all-over background of service, which is awesome. Mm-hmm. Why did you choose the Navy?
So my grandfather was in the Air Force, has been like one of my best friends, like from middle school on up, super close. He's like where I get my love of baseball. We had horses when I was younger. It was nothing for us to get up like 6 o'clock in the morning and just go ride miles and miles of trail. We would go fish together, all kinds of stuff. He's like the wisest man I know. He actually passed away a couple months ago. God rest his soul.
Sorry to hear that.
Just super smart, just wise man. And he told me, if you're going to go into the military, be smart about it. Go into the Air Force or the Navy. So that's why I went into the Navy.
It's hard to argue with that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can't dispute that.
You grew up in the South?
Mm-hmm.
Whereabouts?
Yeah. Auburn, Alabama, like
Okay.
Bible Belt, Alabama.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's
So-
that's God's country down there.
War Eagle.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, there
I mean,
goes half of our Alabama audience.
There are some people from the Auburn area that are Georgia fans, and some are Alabama fans.
This is true.
Auburn's a weird place where it is between those two.
It's a melting pot.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway.
Yeah.
So where'd you go to basic?
So it's actually called RTC.
Okay.
Recruit Training Command.
Okay.
And way back in the day, there was one in like San Diego and maybe Orlando, something like that. But now it's all in Great Lakes, Illinois.
Yep.
So that's where you went.
Yes, that's where I went. Yeah.
Okay.
So I got ahead of myself. Before you went to basic, you had to get recruited. So what did that process look like? Right out of high school?
No. So if you ask me a question, I'm going to be super candid. So
By all means.
if I drop something that sounds super unpleasant, just to know that like if I got myself into something, I got myself out of something.
Okay.
Join the Navy or go to jail?
No, not quite that bad. So 18, I eloped.
Okay.
Okay.
My then husband went into the Army. He was not thriving in the Army. But I was like, I could do this. I'd be way better at this than he could be. So we ended up getting divorced not long after. And then, that's when Grandpa had the conversation with me. Army or Air Force, be smart about this. So I went to my Navy recruiter. And I told him, I said, look, don't BS me. I'm going to sign a contract. I'm going to make your job real easy. But I want a good job. And he was really good to me. I had just been recently divorced. And I didn't want to have to talk to my ex-husband a lot. And he handled a lot of stuff for me. Like, he had my back. And I told him, I said, I want a good job. I don't want a bad job. And he really looked out for me. Like, we started going through everything after my ASVAB scores came in. And he was like, no, I'm not going to let you have that job. No, you don't want that job. And so that's when we landed on logistics specialist. And I didn't regret going into the Navy. And I didn't regret becoming an LS, which is the rating sign for... We have rates in the Navy.
Yes.
Just joke between Dan and I. When you sent us the initial, you said you were an LS in the Navy. He and I were scratching our heads like, what is LS?
I was like,
I didn't type it out, did I?
And he and I thought like, longshoreman? We're not that smart, okay? So
the only other thing that came to mind is long snapper, and I didn't think that was so
and
easy.
I'm pretty sure you're not an offensive lineman. So okay. So logistics specialist.
Yes.
I was way off.
Yeah.
Samsonite, I was way off.
That's okay. So, okay.
Well, it was kind of late at night when I saw like the bat sign come out looking for someone in the Navy.
We did put out a bat signal for you.
Yes.
And you answered, so we appreciate that.
Yeah, and I'm not really a night owl, so it was like a miracle that I happened to see.
It was divine intervention.
It was.
That's cool, though.
Yeah.
So, you knew what you wanted. You knew which service you wanted to go to.
Yeah.
You knew you wanted a good job, and you, in retrospect, you did have a good one. So, you head off to Great Lakes for RTC. Tell us about it. Had you ever been away from home for an extended period of time like that before?
Yeah, because I married that one guy, and
Right.
he was in the Army. We didn't go far away. Like, when he went to AIT, we were just at Fort Gordon.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, like, AIT was at Gordon, and then we went to Campbell.
They let you go to Fort Gordon with him when he was in his basic training?
Oh, not technically. Like, his AIT was, like, 43 weeks long. And I lived in Auburn, which was only like 4 hours away.
Yeah.
So I just
Yeah.
moved.
Okay.
We were married. I was going to get BAH anyway.
Okay.
So
For the AIT portion.
Yeah.
you were
I mean, he
there.
went to
Okay.
basic at Benning, which was also like an hour away from where I was from.
Right. But I mean, that's really close. But you by yourself,
Yeah.
when you went to RTC, had you ever been like, I mean, you are on your own. You are,
I mean, you
That's-
say you're on your own, but you don't really have like.
well, I mean, you don't have a support group. You're not going there with a spouse
Yeah.
or with children or a family group or what have you. You're walking into your initial training all by yourself. And yes, you eventually get to know people.
Yeah.
But at first, it's just you. Had you ever had an experience like that before?
No, not really. I mean, other than like the whole elopement, like at 18 there was that. But I mean, I kind of knew what to expect. Like, I did come from like a military family, and then I went through it with my first ex-husband. But I was dead set on doing it. Like, that's what I wanted to do at that point in time. Like, I kind of just like dove into it. Now, like, you don't ever know 100% what to expect. Like, I remember like the first phone call you get to make when you get there. Like, I just remember like trying not to cry, like telling my mom, like, hey, I made it. I don't want to talk anymore. I'm getting off the phone.
I gotta go.
Love you, bye.
Gotta go.
And of course, you know, you were getting yelled at and stuff.
And for context, this is what year?
2011.
2011. Okay.
Yeah.
What time of year did you go up to?
September.
Okay, so you didn't.
It's starting to get cold there.
I was gonna say you're not quite there. That's still an early fall in that
Not
area
my
of the
cup of
country.
tea coming from
Not coming from Alabama.
East Central Alabama.
From the Gulf.
And then how long was RTC?
We graduated in November.
Okay, you got out of there before it got too bad.
There were like
barely.
flurries on the day of graduation. But I want to back up real quick to the recruiting office. I just remembered I actually did go to an Army recruiter first. And I took that practice ASVAB, and he told me to go back and study and then come back and talk to him. But I went, no offense, guys, but I went to the Navy.
No offense taken.
Yeah.
And I've never been able to figure that out. And you have to have a higher ASVAB to get into the Navy than the Army. So what was that all about, guys?
You know,
Yeah.
we are all imperfect people. And so I'm not going to speak ill of recruiters in general, but they don't have a particularly positive reputation across all services.
Yeah.
They don't have a particularly positive
But
reputation.
if they need the numbers, like I was a shoe in the bag, like I was going in.
Yeah.
But
I mean, the only thing.
it happened for a reason. That's what
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I can think of is, I mean, you say we need the numbers, yes, but they have specific. The Army will call it an MOS, a specialty that they need filled at any given time. So the only thing I can think of is them pushing away somebody like you who's fully
probably need
qualified.
like a lot of combat arms.
Well, I mean, maybe, but it might be more like
they may have wanted, like they may have seen your score and said if she studies, she can get a few points higher, and she can fill this targeted position that we need.
that's my theory.
I never thought about it like that.
That is
That's intriguing.
That is a generous explanation, I think, and I'm not going to defend recruiters anymore.
Okay.
My recruiter lied to me, Dan. Okay, so the Navy it is. You finish up your boot camp, basic or boot camp. What's the best?
We call it boot camp.
Boot camp. Okay, so you're no longer a boot, and your first duty station.
Well,
yeah.
But before that,
Yeah.
tell us about your boot camp experiences.
I had a very atypical boot camp experience. So when we're in like the processing, you know, like before you even like get assigned to your drill sergeants, they're RDCs, recruit division commanders. I don't know why we just can't call them all the same thing across the board, but
Because
whatever.
everyone's special.
There's like these like you'll probably have them at basic, like these very like whoever do like your intake,
Yeah,
but they're not like specific to.
You do the paperwork. You do the medical.
The people who are yelling at you when you first get off.
You get your uniforms sized and
Yeah.
your boots sized and things like that.
So they come around and they start yelling at us, asking if any of us have experience in the band, choir, or on a drill team, like the gun, like rifle slinging kind of drill team. And I'm like a real like, I don't want to be like pinging on the radar, but I don't want to be bottom of the barrel. Like I knew I needed to like
Yeah, you want to
stay
be
in the middle.
the gray man, right?
The ghost.
So I don't know why like I raised my hand, because I have been in the band and I have been in the choir, but I did. And so all of us got taken to another place. So we get put in what's called performing divisions. So I was actually in the choir in boot camp. And so we were in what was called a triple threat division. So we were comprised of band members, choir members, and then like the drill team.
So not singing, acting, and dancing then. Not that kind of triple threat.
No, not
Dan,
not
calm
quite.
down. Get a hold of yourself.
Oh, Fred Astaire.
And so part of our actual training in boot camp was learning how to perform at other graduating, like recruits' graduation ceremonies. And then we would perform at ours at the very end. So I'm not going to say we had twice as much work to do, but like we had like that component of our training as well. I would not have ever thought that was what was going to happen.
Of that special group, I mean, I guess, did any of those people in that group end up going on to like the Navy band or Navy choir or
We
anything
did
like
have
that?
some people who like came in as like that actual rate, like musician rate. And so like they like ranked up as soon as like to like first class or like so E6, like as soon as they got out, like that was already in their contract. But they didn't like reclass right after that. But that was a very cool experience to be able to like perform the whole time. And then for Veterans Day, we got to go, not Veterans Day. There was something, we went to some retirement home like right off the base and performed.
So you would go through your regular boot camp day, and then what? Like an hour after dinner, you would go off for a couple hours of band practice.
It would be whenever. It could be right after PT. It could be
Interesting.
after we ate.
That's
Just wherever they fit it in the training schedule.
weird.
It was
Your
bizarre. I
former
had
drill
no
sergeant
idea.
over here scratching his head.
I don't know how to do that.
It was weird.
He's short circuiting over there.
Obviously, the Navy's basic training schedule has a lot of white space in it that needs to be filled with
Well,
time
only
at the
for
range.
these specific divisions.
Yeah.
It's not like that. I don't know what they did with all like that extra kind of time that like what we would have, what we were doing then. I don't know what they were doing like regular divisions, but we would kind of be run ragged between going back and forth doing all this other stuff.
No, it's yeah. Okay, so mind blown with that. All right,
Just we have to
Moving.
restart the machine.
Don't worry, we did still do typical
Oh, I'm sure, because I mean,
basic boot camp
all
stuff.
of that stuff
We
has
still went to the
has be
gas
done.
chamber. Don't worry.
Did you?
Yes,
The Navy goes to the gas chamber. I find that
We
hard.
did.
I find that hard to believe.
we did. The guy next to me threw up his breakfast. He had Fruit Loops.
Did he have his mask on?
I mean, we have to
Or-
take it off at the end.
Well, I mean, if when you're in the chamber, you have to crack the seal,
Yeah,
and some guys don't re-seal correctly.
I
So-
could.
I think what he's asking is, did he after that portion, did he throw up in the mask?
Oh no!
Yeah.
It was like on
It
the
was
way out.
after you'd already been released out of the
Yeah, it
chamber.
was like on the way
Yeah,
out.
Okay,
I may or may not have done that myself. And,
it's okay. It takes all types.
yeah.
Yeah.
Was looking back on it now, to include your time in the special division. would you say that your time in your basic training or your boot camp was more or less challenging than you expected based on what your family members had kind of briefed you up on?
Both in certain aspects. I got horrific shin splints when I was in, and to the point like when we were marching, like I was like, my shin is gonna snap in half if we don't get to where we're marching to. When I had my wisdom teeth pulled out, I counted, I had like 22 shots of Novocaine in my mouth, and I could still feel stuff. And then we get back to our compartment or our bay, and the Vicodin they gave me did not sit well with me, and I couldn't take it the rest of the time. So I was just in agony. Then I got
So
dry
you did
sockets.
wisdom teeth at boot camp? Mm-hmm. Interesting.
It was horrific.
That doesn't sound like fun.
It was
Oof.
not fun. Mm-mm. I got bronchitis right after that too.
After you left your boot camp?
No, right after the wisdom teeth ordeal. It was not a good time.
Wow.
Well, I was going to ask if boot camp was like a really enriching and
yeah.
and difficult, but I learned a
Minus
lot.
all
But
minus all my ailments. Yeah, it was.
you were all the better off for it then. Okay.
I mean, I got it out of the way then.
Yeah,
So
very good, very good.
So, how large is your boot camp division typically?
I think the performing divisions are probably a little bit smaller, but I can't remember. I do have like our class picture, whatever. I can send it to y'all, and you can.
We're talking dozens.
I mean, like 30, 40, 50?
Maybe 40 to 80, something like that.
40 to 80?
Yeah, maybe. I'm trying to remember because it's co-ed, so there's two.
The two different bays?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Numbers are not my forte.
That's okay.
It was a while ago.
Mine either. But was there what was the attrition rate of people not completing the training? For whatever reason, they just did not make it through.
There were definitely a handful or two that didn't make it, or they would get what we called ASMOD, or like recycled. Maybe 10 per, male, female, something like that. I can't remember. Like this was a while ago.
Okay, so I mean, that seems fairly typical.
Yeah, we
across the
also
board.
don't PT like y'all did, so it probably contributed a lot.
That's true.
I thought
also.
we were going to PT every day because, like, coming from predominantly like Army like family, no, that's not. I was kind of shocked. We did not PT every day. It was like 3 or 4 days a week. Kind of caught me off guard.
My mind's gonna explode. Okay, so last question.
He's enjoying this. Yeah.
Last question before we can go ahead and move on out of boot camp. It's the Navy.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys have to be able to swim?
Yes. Mm-hmm. So we jump off of a platform. You're gonna ask. I don't remember how many feet up it is. Maybe 20. I can't remember. And then there's like certain strokes they will allow you to do around, like it's like an Olympic sized pool, I think, or around all the way around. They do ask, like, if you just know you flat out can't swim, please go ahead and tell us, because we don't want to have to go rescue anybody. I'm a really good swimmer, not the most confident swimmer, but I am a good swimmer. So I remember they're not really supposed to touch you, but I remember like the swim instructor like had his hand on my back and just like walked me to the edge, but I'm glad he did because I am terrified of heights. So he just like, he didn't push me, but he just like walked me to the edge, and I went, and the water was so cold.
Yeah. And
I hate cold water. It was freezing. But I just did the backstroke all the way around, and then we get out, and then we have to like put our coveralls on, and we have to do like this prone float for X amount of time, and then that was it. And if you didn't pass, then you go to like remedial swim class.
When you did the drop, did they have a blindfold on you?
No.
Because that's what they made us always do. CWSD?
Yeah.
Combat water
survival training.
Yeah.
You would literally walk the plank.
No, this was
with a blindfold on.
No.
Yeah.
This is a very basic swim
Okay.
walk, guys.
The Navy is
swimming's good.
The Navy is not training pirates.
No.
Disappointing.
So
But-
sorry.
That's what they want you to think. Okay. Anything else about basic training?
We had really good food.
They say that in the Army, the chow
Is
is
mighty
mighty
fine.
fine.
Yeah.
Do
Do you remember specifically any of your instructors?
All three of them.
Yeah.
I remember when I was dealing with my shin splint issue, I was terrified of getting ASMOD because I was like, I have such good RDCs. Like, what if I don't get this lucky? What if I just have crappy RDCs? I lost a family member when I was in boot camp, and within their hard exterior duties, they were compassionate. There were, you do have like male and females, like a lot of them are pretty young. That things get said that shouldn't be said and stuff like that, and they always handled things really well. And I just was like, I just want to finish it with these guys. I don't want to recycle. And I didn't, so that was really good. But they always trained really good. I mean, they were tough on us. I mean, that's why there's all these like accomplishments you can make, and like everything that we do is inspectable. And they held us to such a high standard, and we always performed really well at all of our inspections. Inspections were like top notch. Like there's all these like battle E flags, battle efficiency flags, and stuff like that. And like we hit the mark every time. Those guys were solid.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Like I was very fortunate.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, ultimately, it all comes down to, you're being trained to meet a standard.
Yeah.
And if you're meeting that standard and excelling, then all the screaming and yelling and all the nonsense, is it really all that necessary?
Oh, we definitely got smoked still.
Yeah, understood. Well, I mean, that mental toughness is important.
Corrective action through physical exercise.
Yes. And it does work. There's a reason why people do it.
That's true.
Okay, so you are off to your first duty station. Do you have any say-so in where you're going? Do you at least have some kind of...
It's A school, like AIT for y'all.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So I go to Meridian, Mississippi.
Got it. Okay.
Which is like almost in the middle of nowhere. The town of Meridian it's actually a decent sized town, but the base itself, and I think it's actually Naval Air Station Meridian, but the schoolhouse stuff isn't like really connected to the air station. But it's like a super small operation. It's like admin type jobs, and I think some of the Marine Corps equivalent stuff. Those guys are going to school there. I think that's about it. It's like, again, it's a super small, like I call it the hill. Like that's where we're at. It's all computer based training. It's just a few weeks. I got held back a little bit because I had 2 family members pass away within 24 hours. Thankfully, I was able to go on a little bit of emergency leave. So you go through your training.
And this is where they're actually teaching you how to do your Navy job.
The computer's teaching you how to do your job. There's no real like OJT for it. I didn't really like that because the rate of logistics specialist is actually, the Navy combined 3 different rates. Postal clerk, aviation storekeeper, and then regular storekeeper. And now we're all logistics specialists. So when you combine that much knowledge down into 1, like that's a lot to be teaching people brand new to, first of all, to the military, and then to this.
Yeah. So you were really learning 3 jobs.
Yeah, I mean the postal aspect not so much. There's actually like a secondary school for that. We call it a C school, and it's not. Civilians still do like a lot of postal stuff at military bases. But I really wasn't a big fan of the computer stuff. I'm a sponge. I like learning, like hands-on stuff, like OJT. But I got through it, and then I actually came down on orders to Japan. I was in Japan for a couple of months, and then I got reassigned somewhere else.
Okay, so you finish your school. How long is your A school?
A school, yeah. I don't even remember how many weeks it was. It's really not a lot. I was only there for a couple months.
Okay, a couple months. Mm-hmm. So then
8 weeks or so.
Maybe a little bit longer than that. 12 maybe? 12, okay. 14, something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
So back to my previous question then. Mm-hmm. How much say-so do you get in your first duty assignment, or is it totally the Navy has assigned you a new duty position?
They'll let you pick, like, they say they're letting you pick East Coast, West Coast, overseas. That is, I don't think that's really how it's working. Because there were, I didn't really want to go overseas. I kind of didn't care where I went, but I really kind of didn't want to go overseas, like, for my first duty station. I'd also recently gotten engaged. And that was just a lot at one time. And I had also gone through a lot of, like, loss and grief for such a short period of being in the military.
3 total, right?
Yeah,
because you
lost
basic.
1 at RTC, and then you lost 2 at your A school.
This is less than a year apart.
Like just a couple of months.
Right.
Wow.
It was a lot.
It's intense.
I actually had contemplated like separating from the military. I had like dealt with like a lot of anxiety. It was a lot at one time. In hindsight, being 2020, I'm really glad that no one like let me really explore that option, because I didn't know what to do. But I've always been like really big on service members using all of these resources that we have at our disposal, because there's a ton of them. Like you can't count them.
Yeah.
There's so many. So I started using them. I went to medical. I went to counseling. Like the MWR stuff that we have on base for trips and stuff like that. And so I just stuck to it, and I'm so glad that I did. But yeah, no, I definitely got sent to Japan on unaccompanied orders, but it all worked out because they sent me back.
Okay, so where'd you go in Japan?
Yokosuka. It's definitely like one of the actual like sea bases. It's where it's like the forward deployed bases for, I can't remember what fleet it is, but that's where like the forward deployed aircraft carrier and like those other assigned ships
I want
are.
to say 7th Fleet.
That does sound right.
I want to say 7th, but somebody will correct me on that. But
I don't know.
yeah.
How long were you in Japan?
Just a couple months.
Just a couple months. How much did you get to see?
Not a lot. And I actually got reassigned because we found out that I was pregnant when I was there. So, but there was also like a lot of like shifting around at that time, because I think shortly after I got there were already definite plans made that like some aircraft carriers were getting swapped around. So all their numbers were like adjusting for what they needed for what.
Now, to get to Japan, did you fly?
Yeah.
Or did you
Yeah.
take a Navy vessel?
No.
Did you take the Patriot Express out of SeaTac, Seattle Tacoma?
I think so. I flew into Yokohama, and it was like a 2-hour bus ride. And it was like driving through Atlanta for 2 hours straight. Like you don't ever, you're like it's like Japan, you're in a city like the whole time.
Yeah, that's Japan.
Yeah. It was really cool to see. I didn't go off base much because there wasn't like much for me to do. I really didn't do a lot. Like the first half, like I was on what they called a barge, like before they actually send you to the aircraft carrier. And then I got assigned to do like a whole bunch of admin stuff at like a temporary, like a transient unit. And so just like did a whole bunch of paperwork and stuff. And these admin people had a pet bunny rabbit in their office. And so like that was my job, was to take care of this bunny rabbit.
And this is on the barge?
No, when I got sent to like the transient unit, the TPU unit.
Okay.
No, a bunny rabbit on a barge sounds like a nightmare.
It sounds like fishing bait to me.
Well, I mean, that, or maybe when you've been at sea for a while and want a little something different.
Oh my gosh. Boat food is horrific.
Yeah.
It's not
so good. So logistics specialist, is this a position that is usually land-based?
It's everywhere.
Or, I mean, they'll go out with the fleet, they're in the land, I mean, everything.
They're at hospitals.
Okay.
They're at like expeditionary units, SEAL units, boats.
Okay.
Aviation.
Gotcha.
If you need stuff, you're going to have LSs. So it's like y'all's supply guys.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
then they go where we go. So, yeah, sure. Sure thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about life on a boat.
So actually,
Or ship.
Both.
it's both.
Okay.
Some people are like, it's a ship because it's this big. None of us call it a ship. It's the boat.
Okay.
So I actually
good clarification point.
I never went on the aircraft. First of all, I never deployed, but I have spent 6 weeks out to sea for a training detachment. And that was like just a couple of months before I got out. And that was at my last squadron. But it is very, very interesting. It's different. You're like on a floating city, like a metal city. It's massive. It's so easy to get lost. I'm not one to get turned around, but everything looks the same. My favorite thing about being on the boat is whenever you're walking through the hangar bay and they have the doors open and you see the dolphins
Oh, yeah, that would be cool.
next to you. That was pretty cool.
What boat were you on?
The Stennis.
Okay.
That's either CVN 74, 76, something like that.
Okay.
So this was all probably Pacific.
Yeah.
Possibly
We left
Indian
out of San
Ocean.
Diego.
Okay.
We just floated
yeah.
around the Pacific for 6 weeks.
But not the Indian Ocean as well.
No. This was just a training detachment before they deployed. Right after I got out.
Okay. Well,
So this was 2013.
2015.
okay. But that was
15,
that was
okay.
on your way out the door.
Yeah.
So let's take it back to Japan. You find out you're pregnant. They're reshuffling ships
All kinds of
or
stuff.
all sorts
Yeah.
of
The
stuff.
Seventh Fleet.
And so that is your ticket back stateside. Where did you head off to?
Naval Air Station, Lemoore, California. Middle of nowhere. It's like smack dab in the middle of the state in the San Joaquin Valley.
Okay.
It's like an hour below Fresno, California.
I mean, that's agricultural land. Out
yeah,
there.
yeah. That's like all there is out there.
Yeah.
And then like a state penitentiary.
That too.
Okay. So big change from Japan to California.
Oh my gosh. I remember getting off the airplane in Fresno and I had like a windbreaker on because I'd been like traveling all day. And it is like 115 degrees. And it's dry, which is like not what it is here. But like immediately just like ripping off that windbreaker because it was just so hot. I mean, I felt like I stepped into, you open an oven that's been preheating. That's what I felt like I stepped into.
Also known as Kuwait.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Kuwait feels like somebody just took a blow dryer and it's just going.
I would rather that than this.
Yeah, Fort Irwin's that way too. Yeah, and no, I wouldn't.
I prefer dry
I would
heat.
I would rather have this. But anyway, so you're off to your second duty station, and you've only been out of training for 6 months.
Something like that, yeah. It was not how I thought things were going to go down. But I think that's just kind of the military in general.
Had you been promoted at this point?
No. Well, so like E2 and E3 they're automatic. They both might be like after like what six months, something like that. So I think I would have been an E2 at this point.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Okay. So if you've been promoted, would your responsibilities have increased?
No, not really. I hadn't done any real like logistics specialist stuff because I wasn't as really like assigned to anything specific.
Yeah.
My time in Japan, I just did like random stuff.
Feeding rabbits.
Yeah. Petting the rabbit, making sure the rabbit was alive.
I'm happy. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So what were you assigned to do?
So when I got to, when I landed in Fresno, I didn't have a sponsor. No one knew I was coming. And it was like my first set of orders that like I had actually been handed, and no one taught me how to read orders, so I didn't really know where I was going.
Jeez.
So I'm like brand new. And, I mean, I just assumed that someone knew I was coming, that someone was going to pick me up. But Fresno Airport's super small, so like everything was shutting down. I've been flying all day. Like I came from Japan, landed in, I guess it would have been Seattle, then like went to Portland, and then landed in Fresno. Like I've barely eaten all day, and I'm pregnant, and I'm traveling with all my stuff back from Japan, and like I'm so tired. I'm so hungry, and I think there's like one phone, and also like I might have been able to get a prepaid phone like once I got like situated, but I don't think I had an actual phone because I came from
overseas.
from Japan. Yeah, I had like an iPad, so if I had Wi-Fi, then I could talk to somebody. There's no one coming to get me, but I think there's like someone at information desk like help me get in contact with someone from the base. So they send like a duty driver to come get me. Well, it's an hour away, and then they get me to a barracks room, and they like take me to like the 6th floor of the barracks, and the AC's barely working. And heat rises, so of course it's like blazing hot. And so they send someone back in the morning to figure out what to do with me.
Yeah. Was that a long night, or you just crashed?
Well, I kind of like zoned in, and I didn't even have bed sheets that night.
Jeez.
I had like a blanket, like a twin size sleep blanket that I packed with me. It was horrific. I was not a happy camper, but I was happy to like not be moving. So they finally figure out where they need to send me in the morning, so we get that scheduled out. So my first actual Royal Duty Station, Royal Squadron, is VFA 122. So it's a strike fighter squadron.
VFA is?
So fixed wing fighter attack, VFA.
Okay.
The Super Hornet.
Yep. Yep. Yeah.
And the Legacy Hornet. It's like it's all combined. So the Legacy Hornet side would be VFA 125, but they were phasing those out.
Yep. Okay. Sure.
So that's the West Coast Training Squadron, and like I can't remember the actual term for it, but like the Rehabilitation Squadron, where they're like doing all the maintenance overhauls on the squadrons.
Yeah.
So it's a really big operation. It's also the largest squadron in the Navy because they are like training and fixing all those jets. So they run like a 3-shift maintenance almost 24/7. It's
it's
huge
a lot.
operation.
It's a lot. Yeah.
It's a lot of personnel. It's a lot of aircraft. It's just a big operation. So I learned a lot of LS stuff really, really, really fast.
Kind of have to.
What were you charged with doing?
So once I started like picking up things bit by bit, which is like, I didn't really learn, especially the aviation specific side. I didn't learn a lot about this in A school.
Because it was through the computers rather than personal.
Yeah. And the aviation stuff was super, it's like very specific. So one of the very first things I learned how to do was order parts for the aircraft. And there's a lot of like checking what gets pushed to us. So there's like a whole system for parts that get ordered. We need to check like the actual part number is correct before we push it through, because if we were pushing through stuff that's not correct, it's just going to get pushed back to us, and then we're going to have to fix it anyway.
Yeah.
So we're
it's time
checking
and money, right?
Yeah, we're checking a lot of stuff. We're pushing that through to like a supply system, and that system like tries to decide like, do we have that part here on station at the base, or is it going to go somewhere else? A lot of times the maintenance department is going to want us to stock check it. Like if it's a part we really, really need, they're going to want us to find out where that part's coming from. Do we have it here, or is it coming from where? So there's a lot of work in parts for that. The other things that we do, there are parts, just like with your car, there are parts that are repairable. So we have to be responsible for getting like that stuff turned in properly to also base supply. There's just, and then there's like stuff that's like office supply type stuff that we divvy out to
Of course.
different work centers. Flight deck boots. So like the financials, like there's certain things we can buy for like office chairs for different work centers. But we also like the flight deck boots have to be very specific for like the maintainers. They can't, like what we get issued in boot camp, they can't like work on the flight line or the flight deck with those boots. So
what is it about those boots that makes them special?
Petroleum?
I couldn't tell you because I don't work on aircraft.
I mean, it could have to do with heat. It might have to do with...
Maybe.
They do look a little bit
POL,
different,
like petroleum.
but I'm not sure.
Yep, oil spills and stuff like that.
I'm not sure.
I'm guessing.
So there is something actually different.
There's something actually different.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure all my maintainer friends would not be happy that I don't know the actual difference. I just know that they need them, so
That's a good start. That's a good start.
Okay.
I just do my best to make sure that they get them.
There you go.
Yeah, so.
Okay.
But there's, again, it's a lot like the supply stuff for y'all. But just specific to aircraft. But I learned a lot. I mean, there's a lot of like record keeping that you have to have. And then once we order those parts, maintenance is probably going to be honest, trying to figure out what the status is on it. So we have to know like the code that the computer gives us. We have to know how to read that.
So
to get it.
Receipts and then tracking where it is in the transit process on its way to you, things like that.
So cradle to grave, handling that requisition.
Yeah.
And making sure that it's logged and we're keeping up with it.
Yeah. Okay. So you are doing exponentially more LS stuff than you were in Japan.
Right off the bat.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How steep was the learning curve?
I mean, since it became all of a sudden OJT, it was kind of a lot at one time, and there's so many different things. But you take it, bit by bit.
Right.
And I did have like a good chain of command. So like if I was like, oh my gosh, like this is a lot, or if I had questions, like no one was gonna get mad that I was asking.
Because this was your second duty station, I mean, technically, right?
Yeah.
Did your chain of command expect you to have a certain knowledge base?
No, when I
you got there?
told them the Japan situation, they kind of understood.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I mean, like,
did you tell them that you were petting a rabbit?
maybe I don't remember.
And they said, "Oh yeah, Flopsy the rabbit. Everybody knows."
I was probably more traumatized about my experience trying to get to this command than anything else. Because I don't know if anyone really knew that I was coming.
When you showed up at the unit, I mean, they didn't.
Surprise! I'm here.
They weren't expecting you at
I
all.
don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
But anyway, you had a very supportive chain of command in actually training you to do
Yeah.
LS stuff
Yeah, for the
that you
most
were
part.
That's
not
good.
familiar with.
That's good.
Yeah, that is good.
Yeah.
How long do you think it took you to feel like, okay, I've got a solid handle on this? You might not know everything, but you felt
just a
you felt
couple of
comfortable.
weeks.
Oh,
Just
wow.
a couple. Yeah. One of my favorite things to do right off the bat was ordering those parts. I was super quick at it. I'd just copy and paste like those numbers, just make sure they were correct, or do a stock check. And if they didn't have it, I'd look for an alternate one. I go check with that work center. Hey, they don't have this particular one. Check to see if this one will work. They get back to me, fix that in the computer, push it through. Okay, it says we have it here. If they don't bring it to me soon, I'll just go get it myself. And then I make sure I log it. Or if there was like they're working on a particular aircraft and they order like 30 parts for it at one time, I just push them through, print it out, and then I just start logging. So
It's critically important.
especially in a squadron like that,
Yeah,
we're training pilots, and then we're like all these modifications are being done on old aircraft.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially with aircraft, there are certain. This is out of my wheelhouse, but there are certain parts that can deadline the entire aircraft if it's not working. So this is critically important. Yeah.
And sometimes, like the simplest thing can down an aircraft, and we have a very strict flight schedule that we've got to keep going. Yeah. And then there's training detachments for these guys too. Like they go to Key West to, I think like dogfighting is what they're doing there.
Yeah, that's what they do in Key West.
Yeah. And then there's stuff that they do in China Lake. There's stuff that they do in Fallon. So they're not just training here. Those jets they've got to go to those places too.
Yeah.
So we all have to work together to get those things done.
Okay. So once you became adjusted and you felt confident in knowing what you're doing, take us through a typical day from getting up in the morning to going to bed at night.
Okay.
What is a typical day?
I worked day shift and a second shift type deal here and there. But they're typically the same. When you get there, you almost always do turnover with that shift before. Kind of like an accountability thing, and make sure whoever you're accepting that shift from did what they were supposed to, and they're not
in brief, out brief.
Yeah, they're not turning over junk to you, or that we're all on the same page about stuff. Then once everyone's kind of satisfied with that, there's typically a maintenance meeting. So a representative or a supervisor from every work center will go to the maintenance office, and they're putting out stuff. They want to know what's going on with this jet, what's going on with this part, or for us, what's going on with this requisition, where are we getting this part, stuff like that. Probably way more in depth for those maintainers, those mechanics and stuff. And then everyone's coming back to the work center, divvying out that information. And then we kind of just go to work. There's reports that NCOs are doing that's way more ahead, above our heads for us junior enlisted folks. Typically we're doing inventories of what we have, different kind of supplies, whether it's your basic stuff like bubble wrap or pins or paper, or if it's more like aircraft specific. There are always parts that need to be ordered when you've got that many aircraft. And then like those repairable items, there's a certain way they've got to be turned in. There's a log for that. Like the shop is bringing it to us. We have to track that. When we turn it in, whether we're going to that like specific place to turn it in, or there's actually like a driver, like a delivery, like from the base supply. Sometimes they come pick it up from us. That has to be logged. Everything has to be logged.
Accountability.
Yeah. Sometimes there's specific paperwork from like the fuel mechanics. Like that stuff needs to be purged because no one wants to be covered in JP5 or high fluid all day. It's not fun. So then you just go about the day. Sometimes there are crazy things that are happening. Oh, there's always a FOD walk down. So we got to check the flight line to make sure that we don't have like pieces of a pin or nuts and bolts and stuff like that.
Very debris out there.
Yeah, I didn't do a lot of FOD walk down at my first squadron because I was pregnant. That's one thing that you don't get to do stuff. Now the LSs are doing a whole bunch of cool stuff anyway out there, but I didn't get to do FOD walk down there. So I was only on like the day shift, like a first shift for a while when I was there, because when I was pregnant I started getting horrific migraines. Like they would have to send me home because the light and all the noise from the jets taking off, like that's loud. A fighter jet taking off, it's pretty loud.
A little bit.
Yeah, like I would end up having to go to like the ICC clinic on base, and I'd get sent home. So I went to like the second shift, like what we call night shift, and it was actually a lot calmer for me. And it's less of us, and the workload's a little bit less, and the duties are a little bit different. But that helped me out a lot. And then I was for sure like I was the main person ordering parts and stuff like that. And I was getting it done. But then there would be a lot of downtime on night shift, and I hated it because if I'm at work, I want to work. So I actually picked up crocheting.
Working with your hands, literally finding something to do with your hands.
It was driving me crazy.
Yeah.
And I asked him, I was like, there's literally nothing to do. I was like, the guys are they're messing around, like being guys. I was like, if one part gets pushed to me from maintenance, like I'm on it. I was like, I don't have anything else to do. Like, I'll put it up if someone walks in. So I taught myself to crochet.
So why crochet?
I mean, it was something I could like easily like bring with me.
And you're still pregnant at this point? So I mean,
yeah. I can't do anything else. I can't lift anything. I can't.
I mean, needlepoint would have been just as easy, I would suspect, as far as like you can start and stop at any time if something happens and comes along.
I mean, I've been crocheting for a really long time at this point. I don't think it's a little bit more like delicate work.
No. I don't mean like that. I mean like you're crocheting or doing needlepoint. Something comes in and you have to do some work, then you can put it down and you can put it up. Okay, so there was.
She tried to teach me when I was younger, but that did not.
Okay, so there was actually an influence that led to you crocheting.
It did not work out when I was younger.
That's more of what I was driving.
Oh, okay, there you go.
It's all right. He makes fun of my coffee choices too.
I make fun of everything that Roger does, everything. But that's what happens when you're friends for
too long.
But I did also have a really great mentor when I was on the night shift at my first squadron, and he taught me like the next like echelon of things, probably like as like an E4 I would do. I can't really remember those specifics because I never really got the chance to do it. The LS rate is really locked up when it comes to advancement, or at least it was then for E4. I mean, yeah, E4s. But there would be times like when I was on the boat that I would be able to use those things, and like the maintenance chiefs would be like, "Oh, thank you. I'm so glad you were able to figure that out for us."
Yeah.
But I always appreciated LS2 or an LS for teaching me all those extra things. But I also think that he knew that like while the guys were like joking around over there, that like I really wanted to learn more. I really liked my job. I really wanted to advance. And I think I passed, but not advanced. I think the first time I missed it by a point. And then every other time after that, I missed it by less than a point. And it was so irritating. The advancement process is really irritating in the Navy.
Like in the Navy in general, or specifically for?
Well, in general, like we have evaluations. Like
it's annual, right?
I think it is. I think you only take the advancement. Maybe it's twice, but I think it's only once. But like I still have all of my evaluations, and there were some like jobs on USA Jobs that I've been applying for recently. And I was looking back at all my evals, and I'm like, this is such crap.
What do you mean?
Like I should have advanced. Like to miss it by half a point. Like that's so irritating. But and there was a couple times I would actually like he would let me take maintenance meeting in his place for him, so I could learn like all those things too. He was a really good mentor to me. And he's always, like, anytime I've needed a reference or something, he's always been right there for me. So to this day? Yeah, I keep in touch with him.
Did he stay in?
No, he got out, maybe 2013.
So not a career guy?
No, I think maybe he was in for, like, 10 years, something like that. But he did a lot in those 10 years. Like, he used to volunteer for all kinds of deployments and stuff like that. He did a lot of not typical LS things. Like, he went to the desert, and for an LS, like, that's not normal.
Okay, so how long were you at?
About 2 years. Because you're there until like a year after you've had your kid. For, like, pregnancy order type stuff.
You're stabilized.
Mm-hmm, okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And at that point, how long had you been in?
This would have been, I guess, close to 3 years. Because I went in 2011. And then my, like, year mark postpartum would have been 2013.
Okay.
Did you say you remarried?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming your husband is also in the service. That husband. What?
So current husband is husband number 3.
Got it. Okay.
Okay. That's the one that's in the Army.
Assumed.
It's okay.
Yeah,
it's okay. There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then, after 122, I went right across the street to VFA 14. Like, literally opened the door from one hangar to the next.
And that was your new duty assignment?
Yeah, it was my last squadron. Mm-hmm. The oldest and boldest is their tagline. And they really are, like, one of the oldest squadrons in the Navy.
Is that fairly typical? For you to have a change of station, and yet it's across the walkway?
For like the kind of community I was in, yeah, you could spend your whole career in Lemoore, or the flip of that, the East Coast Strike Fighter Squadron in, like, the, I guess, Oceana, Virginia area.
But that's more of because of your job, or rather your specialty, your rate.
The aviation, there's all those maintainer, because you have, like, a sea to shore rotation. So when you're on shore rotation, typically you're not going to deploy. You kind of, I mean, you're working like your typical, like, job, but you're not going to deploy. But then on sea rotation, you're going to deploy probably every year for that duration, like 3-ish years, something like that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I don't know what it's like for other, like, not aviation rates, but definitely aviation rates were like us LSs that are in the aviation community. There's a sea to shore rotation.
So, I mean, when you walked across the street to your new station, you probably already knew everybody. And
I knew some people, because, like, being at 122 and it being such a big operation, we did have, like, a bigger spending budget. So there'd be a lot of times that other people would, like, ask us if we had this to spare, or, like, could we barter this and stuff. Yeah, so I did kind of know some people there. Some people that were at 122 with me had PCS'd over there. So I kind of knew new people.
That's that logistician underground.
Well,
never ask where they got their stuff from. Just don't ask. Don't ask.
Mm-hmm.
But your duties essentially remain the same. You were still doing the same job.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely a smaller amount of people because it was not nearly as big of an operation. I think that we had like 12 or 14 aircraft compared to the I don't know how many aircraft we had over there. So that was nice. And it was only 2 shifts.
Okay. So by this point, you're already closing in towards the end of your enlistment.
Mm-hmm.
Had you decided, like, I'm just going to do one stint and I'm done? Or were you still thinking about maybe it's a career, or what was going on?
I was really, really, really torn. So I had a kid, I had a little Norsen, and I loved my job. I loved being in the Navy. But my then husband did not like, I don't know what exactly it was about it, but I guess he just didn't like me being in the Navy. He had never lived outside of Alabama. He was from North Alabama, and way before I met him, he had moved to Auburn. He did not like living in California. I loved where we lived. I could have stayed there after I got out, whether I did like 20 years or just the 4. And in a roundabout way, he kind of made me feel like a bad mom for wanting to stay in. So I felt like I wasn't being a good wife and mom if I stayed in, especially because they were having a deployment right around the corner. So even if I extended for like a year, I would have deployed because I made 2 different training detachments with them. So it was a decision that I kind of had to make.
So we ask, were you able to get out on your own terms?
I mean,
do you think you did get out on your own terms?
Yeah, I could have put my foot down and told him no. Like you can either stay here or you can go back to Alabama. So you ultimately made the decision. Yeah.
And then decided to get out.
And I could have gone back in if I wanted to.
It's true.
Like there's that code on my 214.
I guess we can all go back in, whether we want to or not.
I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. Well, before we move on, let's go ahead and take a break.
Yeah.
Okay. So, at this point, you're going to get out.
Mm-hmm.
What was the process like to transition out of the Navy?
It was kind of difficult because in 2015, the carrier air group that my squadron is in is getting ready for deployment. So they'll be gone for like 6 weeks, come back for 6 weeks, gone for 6 weeks, and so on and so forth. And in the middle of it, I've got to start getting ready to go. My husband at the time and we had decided that we were going to stay in the area for a little bit because he had a civilian contractor on base at my old squadron. And we were renting a decent 3-bedroom house with a big backyard for the dogs, and we didn't mind the area enough to like stay there for a little bit longer. But also I was getting sent on said detachment, so I'd be gone for 6 weeks, come back for 6 weeks, gone for 6 weeks, come back for 6 weeks. But I didn't mind it because I hadn't got to go anywhere or do anything cool the whole time. I've been stuck in the middle of California for this whole time. So I did finally get to go out to sea for 6 weeks. Got to have some free time, got to have some liberty in San Diego for a little bit. That was finally nice. But all we did was just float around the Pacific for 6 weeks and 12 on, 12 off for 7 days straight the whole time we were out there. And it's so cold on the boat because of all the electrical components and the wiring and all that. It's so cold. I actually got a cold on the boat. So like you'd walk into the maintenance office and I'd be at my computer and I'd just be wrapped up in a foul weather jacket, just doing stock checks and stuff. And the ladder wells on the boat, they're just it's so steep. It's terrifying. But so we're having to plan all this stuff. Like there's XYZ thing you've got to check out from, but then I'll have to be gone. Or I was also going through like a whole bunch of physical therapy for my back at the time, but everyone's gone. And so, like, I'm missing all these appointments, too.
Mm-hmm.
And then PT's getting mad at me because I'm not making my appointments. My chiropractor's mad at me because I wasn't making it to my PT appointments. But then my senior chief is like, but we really need you here. And if I knowing what I know now, I could have put my foot down and be like, it's a medical appointment, you can't. But little E3 Gragg at the time was like, I really don't want to make my chain of command mad at me, so I'm just going to stay here and be a good girl and do my work.
Yeah, that is typical.
So now when I hear E3 say stuff like that, I tell them they can't not let you go to your appointment, and if they treat you differently because of it, they can't do that either.
Yeah, I mean,
but
these rules were made for a reason.
Yeah, right? But I know it's tough being in that position, being low man on the totem pole, and then you get treated like trash.
Yeah.
Because you just want to go to your doctor's appointment, you know? Like, it's a tough spot to be in, especially being junior enlisted.
Yeah.
So, just start going through the checklist like everyone else does.
Was it a fairly smooth process?
Yeah, for the most part, other than, like, needing certain signatures from person X gone for training or something like that. But other than that, I mean, I guess just like for y'all, whenever you have to clear something, you just keep checking the next box.
Go to all the briefings and get all the signatures and get all the stamp stuff. Mm-hmm. And so how long was it?
I mean, my timeline wouldn't be like a typical timeline again because
you were at sea for 6 weeks.
Yeah, there was that. And then again, like when they weren't going to send me on any more training detachments, because I did like sea for 6 weeks, came back for 6 weeks, then fell in Nevada, and then that was it. Like then there were other people would have to go to like Key West or then go back out to sea. So I mean, I'd have to like wait for someone to come back and get a certain signature. But it wasn't. I wasn't like stressed out about like I've got to clear. I'm just like. I'm just chilling at my desk waiting to get this next thing or take care of this next thing.
How long does the Navy give you from like the time where you say?
Honestly, I don't remember. It's just all just a blur.
It doesn't. The Navy doesn't, or the best that you can recall, the Navy doesn't have like if you do not re-enlist by 6 months out, then you're going to be separated. Or if you don't re-enlist by the time you're a year out, you're going to be separated.
So I'm sure that there is like a statute for that, like a regulation for that. But I firmly remember like my last like day or two on active duty, like when I'm going to like certain person like higher up in the chain of command's office. I remember going to my command master chief's office, and he for like the third time has a talk with me about, Greg, if you don't want to get out, I will go to whoever's admin office I need to, and I will figure out what we need to do so you can stay in if that's really what you want to do. So then I was like, don't do this to me.
It almost worked too.
So it wasn't really that they were pressuring you, it's that they saw you as an asset and that you were good at your job, and they wanted to keep you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All my evals say that. LSS and Gragg is an asset to this command.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, flattering, but I mean, once you've made up your mind, you've made up your mind.
Yeah.
Right.
And like part of me was like, there's no way like he could do that. I mean, had I made the decision, yeah, but I mean, a part of me did want to stay in. I mean, one of my chiefs had this motto, like this will be the easiest job you'll ever have. You just wake up, dress up, show up. Mm-hmm. You know, like that's the bare minimum. And then obviously don't get in trouble, but like
we spoke several months ago to another logistician, and he had pretty much the same philosophy.
Oh, really?
You tell me where to go, and you tell me what to do, and all I have to do is do what you say. This is easy.
This is awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, really, like that's it.
Yeah.
Mhm. That's why they say like basic and boot camp is like the easiest thing you'll do in the military, because they tell you what to wear. They're going to make you go to where you have to go. They're going to tell you what to do.
They're going to feed you
every second of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, so yeah, I mean, I was really torn. And like every time I'd pass him in the hall, like I tried to look away, but then he would see me. He's like, are you sure you want to get out? I'm like, we've already had this talk, CMC, but thank you. But yeah, that last conversation he had with me, that one kind of got me.
Tugging on your heartstrings a little bit.
Yeah, I know. I think he knew too that like I did really like my job. So
Yeah.
So
Well, you get your DD 214.
yep.
Then what happens?
I took a couple of college classes. I got to be a stay-at-home mom for a little bit. Had my son potty trained in a week and a half.
Nicely done.
impressive.
He was morbidly obsessed with the vacuum cleaner. And so I used it to my advantage. You go potty, you get to vacuum. Never had an accident during the day or night.
That is the greatest psyop I've ever heard in my life. My hat is off too.
Quite impressive. So you were in California for a little bit longer after you got out.
Yeah, just a couple of months.
And then where?
Then we moved back to Alabama.
Back to Auburn?
Yeah.
Okay. And did you end up going back to work?
I took college classes for a while. And then my husband worked.
Yeah, so you were your job was the homemaker, the mother.
Yeah, kind of. Well, we moved in with my mom for a little bit.
Yeah.
Until we found like what the plan was to find like our own place. But to go from being active duty to not really doing it, that was tough. Like that much structure to almost nothing that was rough.
What would you say was the most challenging part?
I mean, it just my personality, like I'm a doer, I'm a problem solver. I'd like to stay busy. To go from like 100 to 0. I mean, like my brain was like, I don't know what to do with it. So I had to have a routine. I used to run like not crazy long distances, but I used to like, it was nothing like my what I like to do for PT. Again, PT in the Navy is way different than PT in the Army, as we've already established.
Probably a good thing.
A lot of times I would just like, I'd go run 5 miles, like if we got a PT on our own. So that's what I would do during the week. And then I had a really good other Army spouse. Well, she was an Army spouse friend. She was like my gym partner. We had horses together. We would ride horses. And she was my running partner too. She's the one who really helped me get back into shape postpartum. She was also a civilian contractor. She would actually write the flight schedule for all the pilots. So she knew everybody at the base. So she actually got to I actually got to do PT with her for postpartum instead of like doing like regular postpartum stuff. And that was like really big because then there was no real like PT program for postpartum women. And I think maybe now there is something like that.
Yeah, it's certainly better than it was.
Well, yeah, the military was super lacking in that department.
I don't know about the Navy, but the Army has 3 PT, which is pregnancy and postpartum. So even when you are pregnant, you can attend the pregnancy PT.
Yeah, my husband now he's active duty, and he's talked to me about it.
Yeah.
About their version of it now. But in the Navy back then definitely didn't have to, and I struggled really, really hard, and that was something the Navy then was definitely lacking because there was no direction. And a postpartum woman, I'm sorry, but cannot perform on that kind of level. Like there is a process to get your body. Yeah. I mean, you grew a human inside of you. What do you want from me? Yeah. So, me and my friend, we would go run like 8 or 9 miles on a Saturday morning. And so that would be like my morning routine when I got out. When we moved back to Auburn was to go run in the morning.
So to at least keep some of that form and structure
and to give me something to
life.
Do too. Yeah. But then there was also an adjustment for that because where I was stationed in California, we've already talked about like no humidity, but it was flat, so flat. So then I moved back to Auburn. And the Alabama has pretty mild winters. It was even more mild in California, so it's a little bit colder. There's humidity and there's hills, so like I was struggling in that department too. Yes. So I would go run. I was not doing the same kind of mileage, but I had to adjust. I was still crocheting, and I was taking college classes. So that was like on top of being a mom, and like we had dogs still, so doing that. So like that was, I had like a very set routine.
Yeah.
It was like an active granny.
Were you using your GI Bill for that?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I used to get ripped all the time because that was the only thing I would utilize from the VA. Because I had been, for a really long time, I was dead set on I didn't want to have anything to do with the VA because I'd heard so many horror stories about people with, like, and I didn't want the headache. But like that was the one thing I was going to use was my GI Bill.
Yeah.
Okay, so what were you studying?
Supply chain management, which is like the civilian equivalent for logistics specialist.
A lot of people get into the logistics in the military because it's such a great transferable skill afterwards.
It is, and they make really good money.
Yeah.
Because I've looked at kind of getting back into it since I've been here. I'd actually applied for a supply specialist position with the Golden Knights. So I'm still waiting to hear back from that because it would be so cool.
Okay, well, let's go forward in the timeline a little bit.
Okay.
How did you end up being in the Fayetteville, North Carolina area?
Okay, so in 2019 is when I started dating my now husband. He was stationed at Benning. He was a drill sergeant. I think like a lot of people say, we didn't think it was going to be super serious, but here we are now. I can't remember how long he had been on drill orders at that point, but I think maybe 2020 rolled around and he was up for orders again. And I think either he had come down on orders to Polk, and he definitely didn't want that, and for Geronimo, and I think he had gotten the option, or maybe somehow he ultimately was able to go be an airborne school instructor. So we got to stay at Auburn, Benning for a little bit longer. I can't quite remember that like airborne instructor Polk timeline, like what. We didn't go to Polk, thank God. Like that's the one thing we didn't want to do.
That is the sportsman's paradise down there.
It is as close to hell as you can get in these United States.
I don't mind like living out in the country. Like my grandparents that I grew up super close to, like I have 160 acres of land and a 12-acre pond stocked with bass and brim. Like I would have been fine, but like that would have put us further away from his kids because his kids were here, and I only would have been 8 hours away from my kid, like the same distance now. And I co-parent pretty well with my ex-husband, so like I would have been fine, but that's not what I wanted for him. But we knew eventually like we were coming back to the motherland. So this is his third time being stationed here.
It's the center of the universe.
So I've learned.
So elitist.
So now here I am, Navy veteran, living
in the all-American city.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The home of the All-Americans.
Yeah.
Do you think that your time in service has helped with, the adjustments that come with being married to a military?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. My husband has got to be the most lucky active duty Army soldier on the face of the planet that is married. Because like when we found out he was going to Romania, I was like, all right, I'll see you when you get back. I was like, the dogs are sleeping in bed with me for 3 weeks. I don't have to cook enough to feed a small army. I do what I want when I want. Bye. Be safe. Don't do anything stupid.
What lessons or what things that you learned from your time in service have carried over into your post-service life, whether it's school, work, marriage, parenting, relationship building? What things did you learn in your time in the service that have carried over, or that you have applied, I guess?
Probably number one would be resiliency, or like sometimes grin and bear it. Be kind to yourself. Like in the military, there's always something. But you've got to give you got to give yourself some time to bounce back. We all have to embrace the suck, but at the same time, like you've got to give your body and especially your mind some time to rest. It's so easy getting caught up in that like go, 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 or on to the next pace, but that's only maintainable for so long. You know, like back when guys in the Army were deploying back to back to back, there was a reason why they gave y'all R&R. I mean, not that 2 weeks is sufficient, but like, you know, like studies show like that kind of tempo, like that's not maintainable.
Right.
You know? And so like, you know, thankfully things kind of simmer down a little bit, but like we can't recoup that kind of loss now. So I'm a doer. If there's something that can be done, I want to go ahead and get it done. And I was very much like that in the military, but I had to learn like I don't have to get everything done at one time. And so not just like things that have to get done throughout the day, but like if there's a problem that is like going to be something ongoing, I've learned to like chip at it bit by bit. So like with the move, but that was a big move for me last year. And it was the first time I'd like moved away from my son like that. Again, my ex-husband and I co-parent fairly well. And all in all, a 7 to 8 hour move, like a drive, that's not horrific in the realm of having to PCS.
Oh yeah.
So what my husband and I actually did, I was working at a really large horse farm last year. I had been working there for a couple of years. And they have a row of camper slots on the back end. And I also have 2 horses in that. So I was boarding my horses in, working in the same facility. I actually lived in a camper last summer with my dogs and my son. And so like 1 week a month, my son and I would load the dogs up and we'd go visit my husband. And then we would come back. And so that's what we did every month last summer. And so we just kind of broke it down and took it bit by bit. But it gave me like the rest of the summer to spend time with my son. Mm-hmm. And we would still get to come up here and visit my husband.
Resiliency.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good stuff.
It's a theme.
It is. You're not the first person to express that sentiment.
That's because it's true.
Well, we're all, you know, across all the branches, we're all indoctrinated in a very specific way. We got broken down and built back up and molded in a very specific way. Mm-hmm. And I would be shocked if someone ever told me that, like, a lot of that didn't carry into their civilian world. Yeah. Like, I'd be like, well, what did you actually do in your time in the military? If that's not still part of you to like 50% at least. Because I only did 4 years. And like, if there's something to be done, I'm like, I have to do it now.
Yeah. And I mean, it's been almost 10 years since you got out.
Yeah.
So, and it still carries on.
We were talking last night, I took notes. Yeah. I can't not take notes.
Would it be a fair statement that you got more out of the Navy than the Navy got out of you?
Probably. I mean, I did give a lot to the Navy, but especially with the job I had, it's highly transferable. Like, there's a lot you can do with it. But I did have, across the board, I did have such great leadership up and down the chain of command. And there was a point in time at my second squadron, I was actually TAD to like base supply. There's a lot of different facets that go into base supply. And I worked in like material delivery units, so delivering parts to various squadrons. I did like supply response. Like that's a lot. And then I was an expediter, so like those high priority requisitions that are like just not coming in, we really like try to dissect the issue with that. So I did a lot of that. So I got the opportunity to do a lot of stuff. Like at one point being an E3, I had an E5's job.
Another recurring theme.
Yep.
Oh, well, you know, like if you're good at your job, you get to do everybody else's job.
So the curse of competence. So they paid you E5 work to do E3, even though you were an E3.
Sadly, no.
Yeah.
That's not how that works.
Yeah.
Oh, well, let's not talk about the time that one Christmas they sent home like twice as many people for leave than they should have. So I was doing the supply response section and my expediting job at one time.
I can't believe that would actually be an accident.
My goodness.
I think that sounds like oops.
I got handed a counseling chit one time. Flipped out because I just saw a counseling chit. Turned out it was a good counseling chit.
Yeah.
And then I had to apologize for flipping out on my first class, who was an E6. And then I just excused myself.
I'll just start doing push-ups now, thanks.
No, I walked out way too fast for that.
Yeah.
But again, I get that's a testimony to the kind of leadership that I had, that they saw.
Yeah.
When things, stuff like that
Yeah,
I mean,
they didn't just give you a, attaboy, good job. They actually put it on paper and put it in your record.
Yeah.
So that actually does say a lot for, I mean, not just them, but you as well. So that's good.
and so all of that good leadership I have or had, I got to take away like stuff from them. One of the biggest things that might not sound like a big thing to some people, but that same first class that wrote me the good counseling statement, anytime I would try to apologize for something, I always used to say, I'm sorry. And he would tell me, he was a very interesting man. He was like half Venezuelan, half Italian. He would tell me, he's like, oh, you're sorry? You're a sorry person? He'd be like, do you mean you apologize? He's like, because I don't want sorry people to work for me.
I had a squad leader as a young soldier that he was Ukrainian, and he did the same thing.
He would say, I apologize.
English was his second language, and like his dad was American, his mom was Ukrainian, and he came over here, joined the military to get his citizenship, and yeah, he would say the same thing. You are sorry. If you say you're sorry, you are sorry.
So something that's always stuck with me.
Yeah.
So like it also, I mean, it does sound better.
Yeah.
That's the little thing. It's a little bit more direct and sincere.
Yeah.
So stuff like that. Like they're all kind of things I got to take away.
Okay. Well, other than that, leadership specifically, like leadership lessons, how to lead people. Whether it's by example or by mentorship or just generally taking care of subordinates or what have you. What is probably the biggest lesson, or the first one that comes to mind, of being of leadership that you took away from the military that you have then implemented in your private life?
That's hard because I had so much good leadership. So like my general rule of thumb is like, if I appreciated that about that person, it's probably something I should implement. So like in basic or boot camp, if someone messes up, y'all all mess up. So like the flip of that is like, I like to acknowledge people when they do good. And that's something I always appreciate because like the military is vast. Very rarely do you have such a super, super small amount of people below you. So I think it's super important to acknowledge those people that are, going above and beyond. Or if someone's had it really rough, but they're still trying to show up, you need to acknowledge that. I think there needs to be more acknowledgement across the board. Sometimes I even tell my husband stuff like that. I'm like, well, so-and-so's had it rough, but so-and-so is trying to show up.
Yeah.
Sometimes
give credit where credit is due.
Yeah, exactly. And then the flip of that, if someone's messed up, acknowledge it, but don't degrade them, But I know there is a time and place where you gotta dig into them sometime when they are messed up. There is a time and place for that, but
you don't have to stay there.
Yeah. But those super, super new guys, and especially coming to an environment like infantry unit and stuff like that, these guys have never had a job like this. It's entirely possible that I could have had some kind of supply or logistics job before the military and then went in as a logistics specialist. I kind of knew something, or worked retail or something like that. But no one, unless you've been in law enforcement or something like that, no one's really done infantry stuff until they've gotten here. That, it's different, And then OSA, it's 22 weeks now, but it's brand new, and these kids are so young. I was a little bit older when I made it in, so I guess my biggest thing is, again, give credit where credit's due. I think people need to hear that more, especially your junior enlisted folks.
Well, your junior officers certainly need to hear it too.
I doubt that.
They are people too, Dan.
Debatable.
Second lieutenants are people too.
I have seen no proof of that.
They're babies too.
They are babies.
They're babies too. Okay.
They are
Noted.
Babies.
Okay.
Okay. Well, you want to ask?
I will give you this honor.
Well, given everything, your family history and service, and all the injuries, whether significant or not, that you had throughout your time in service, if you could go back, would you do it all again?
Oh, for sure. And I would have stayed in longer. If I could do it over again, I'd stay in longer.
Okay.
Do you have anything else you'd like to share with us before we wind down here?
I think I would like to say that, again, we kind of talked about it earlier, like the benefits you have while you're in and resources. You got to start taking advantage of stuff like that, because the more and more it doesn't get taken advantage of, it's going to start getting taken away. Like MWR stuff, especially where I was stationed. I think like there was like an actual like sit down restaurant, and it like they like brewed their own root beer there, and it was like the best root beer ever, and the food was pretty good too, like a few steps up above like Applebee's and stuff. And Lemoore is a super small area, and the base is like it's a few like miles outside of town. They shut it down because they weren't getting any business.
Yeah.
And so stuff like that keeps happening. But there's so many resources for kids, for spouses, families, single soldiers. Take advantage of stuff that is there for you, whether you're at a big base or a small base. Because when you don't have it, then you're going to start complaining that you don't have it.
Yeah. That's actually very sound.
That's really great advice.
Very sound.
And then when you cross that line and you're a veteran, do the same thing too. I'll let people make their own decisions about whether they want to start using, VA benefits and stuff like that, because I'm fighting my own battle with that right now, almost 10 years later, and they're not my favorite people in the world, but...
Well, you're not alone in that either.
I know. I've been out for almost 10 years, and I'm just now starting the process because there's certain medical care I need that I'm not able to really get through TRICARE in a timely manner, and I just want to rip my hair out. But I will not discourage anyone from it. To each their own.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much
Thank
for coming
you.
on.
Absolutely. This has been great.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
You have expanded our Navy knowledge
You learned a lot.
significantly.
Rates, rank structure.
A lot of
Not
stuff.
a longshoreman.
Not a long snapper.
Or a long sniper.
I just LS.
Perfect. Thanks.
Thank
you so much.
So what did you think?
That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Learned quite a bit about the Navy.
Our second logistician.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. But I mean, our second Navy personnel as well.
Yes.
Learned quite a bit more, building that knowledge base.
For anybody that follows us on social media, they'll know that Shae was a godsend. She was a short-term fill for us because we had a last-minute cancellation, and we say the bat signal. We put the bat signal up saying, "Hey, we need a guest, preferably Navy," and we got a whole bunch of chattering goofballs who all had something snarky to say, and then she stepped up, and so we certainly appreciate that.
Yes, and she hit a home run. She was awesome.
Yeah,
she was awesome.
So
the depth of her family's military history is very cool. I mean, sometimes, especially in, I guess, a longer line or a few generation line, you typically see it on like one side of the family. But it was like every branch of her family was just going back and back, and I think that's really cool. And it was across all the branches.
Yeah, literally all of them except your favorite, the Space Force.
So that is definitely very cool.
I can't remember if she told us this on camera, but off camera she said she believes it's 7 generations in a row.
Yes. Yeah.
So she can't fully corroborate that, but that's what they believe.
Yes. Yeah.
That's impressive.
Very, very cool.
So it's obviously an old American family too, and so of course we appreciate their service and all that.
It's amazing.
One of my favorite parts of the whole discussion, we talked about boot camp and we did all that. That's all good stuff. My favorite was when you can tell she lit up, when you can tell she was finally in a job where she was able to do her job, do the logistics, and be able to have that real sense of purpose. Because her first duty station, she was very candid about saying that she didn't really do anything important or remotely close to her duty description, and it was just kind of, luckily it didn't last for very long, but she lit up when she got to finally talk about she talked about how when she was in the A school,
and it was all done on computers, and they were, bringing 3 jobs into one, and that's not really her preferred learning method.
Yeah.
Just sitting in front of a screen.
Yeah, sure.
Think about then how I don't know if demoralizing is the right word, but you've just spent all this time training in a way that is probably not the best for you for your job, and then you go, all the way across the world, and you're not even doing that. You're feeding and petting a rabbit. I mean,
that's not a euphemism. That's what we're actually doing.
I mean, that would suck the drive right out of some people.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, of course, when she got to California and she's actually doing something and finds that she's remarkably proficient at it, yeah, of course.
And she's got good leadership to go along with it.
Apparently, she had good leadership all along the way. So that's, I mean, even her drill instructors, which are not drill instructors, they are
RDCs.
You know what? Yes, we're probably wrong, but regimental.
It wasn't regiment.
Recruit division commanders, RDCs.
Yeah.
Yep, that's probably still wrong, but we're rolling with it.
I'm just waiting for you to apologize when you said we are wrong, and then I turned out to be right.
No, I will not apologize.
I'll wait.
You'll be waiting forever. But yeah, I mean, all across her career, she had, solid leadership, and that is a rarity.
Yeah.
To have it entirely through your career. Granted, her career was only 4 years, but still, with the maladies that she had, from shin splints to migraines to some of her back, and then being pregnant, especially showing up at a new unit pregnant, and then having the baby, having paternity leave, or maternity leave rather, and then postpartum health issues, whatever. There are chains of command out there that they see all these things and they're like, this is not a service member worth retaining.
Yeah.
And all the way up to the time she got out, her commander was trying to get her to stay.
Yeah.
So that says something a lot about her and the leadership that she had. So
yeah,
it's good stuff.
I've also had shin splints. That is not fun. Of all the stuff I've had to deal with, shin splints are some of the worst. Ugh. So good for her. Okay.
Yeah, good stuff.
Any parting shots?
No, just thanks again, Shae. We really appreciate it. You came through in a pinch.
Yep, thank you.
And yes, you're awesome. So, it's free fire time.
It is indeed.
So, I had a question that I was going to ask you, but then something changed within the last week. And I was like, you know what, that is not really fitting for right now.
Okay.
So, maybe next time I have the free fire topic, then I'll ask it then. But I also thought of something else. Why do superheroes wear capes? So many of them. What purpose do the capes serve?
You mean, I'm assuming you're referring to the superhero genre?
Yes.
Why the cape?
Mm-hmm. Why does Superman need a cape? It does not help him fly.
So let's break it down this way. Putting the superhero part to the side. What is the purpose of a cape? Granted that it is a accoutrement that is not worn
since the Victorian era.
But what is its purpose?
Warmth, really,
and or to keep you dry. Okay.
Yeah.
So one or both.
Right.
The superhero genre, as we understand it, and I'm not a scholar on the matter, but we'll say comic books. Comic books, as we understand them, really got their origins. 1930s, is that?
Sure.
There's probably little more archaic version of that in the 19s and 20s and all that. But 30s that's when Superman and #1 came out and all that. So you have to imagine that the people in I'm picking a date, 35, who are drawing these and creating these now iconic comic book characters were people who were probably born at the end of the previous century. Late 1800s, maybe turn of the century, maybe.
Okay.
So you joke around and say, "Yeah, Victorian." Okay, well, yeah, but I imagine that I know all the nerds are gonna light me up for this because I can't remember who the original Superman creator was. That person would have been born in a time where it wasn't necessarily completely out of the realm of possibility for people to be wearing things like that. So fast forward into the mid and then late 20th century and beyond. Why is Batman still wearing a cape? We understand why he wears a cowl, of course, because having part of his face covered makes him completely immune to being recognized as the most famous person in Gotham City, and having part of his face covered. So we'll take it as read that the cowl. For our audio listeners, if you could see the look on Dan's face right now, dude, I'm trying so hard. In conclusion, the weirdos that drew these things in the 1930s, they grew up in a time where that probably wouldn't have been totally out of left field.
For the hero to have a cape.
Well, for anybody to have a cape, or at least anybody that can afford it anyway.
I do not have a better answer than that.
Okay.
However, I will destroy your argument.
With facts and logic?
Because if it is completely natural for somebody born in the late 1800s, early 1900s to accessorize his superhero with a cape,
and a codpiece.
Why is that person who was born in the late 1800s, early 1900s then dressing his hero in spandex with calf-high boots that are also super tight with a codpiece? And I mean, that just doesn't work. I could understand if they did it in a tuxedo with coattails and a monocle and a top hat with a cane. I mean, by your logic, the Penguin should have been a superhero.
I was going to say the Monopoly guy is being promoted into superhero status. I mean, ultimately, what you're asking me is, why do weirdos do weird things? And that is a great enigma. It's a riddle wrapped in an enigma.
Fair enough.
This was your question for me.
That was. Why do superheroes wear capes? I don't have the answer. There's no rebuttal on this.
Well, I think, Gotham City has pretty bad weather. I mean, it's...
Batman is the only one that I can think of off the top of my head that there's kind of an understanding, because he's always jumping down at people. So his cape actually almost makes it look like there's bat wings. So it kind of adds to the illusion of Batman. But Superman?
Superman's not even a man, though. He's from Krypton. So the rules don't apply. All right, we've gone off the rails now. Okay.
All right.
That was you had me for a question, and that was it. Okay.
Yeah.
It's a squandered opportunity when you have my brilliance and intellect and charm, and you ask me about weirdos and spandex. But
this is why I'm your only friend.
It's true.
All right. Well, look.
My wife says I have to have one friend, and it's you.
I was cursed.
Yes.
All right. Well, again, thank you to Shae Gragg for stepping in on a pinch and joining us. Thanks again to Miss TJ for having us on her show, Soul Hygiene. Had a lot of fun doing that. Had a lot of fun doing this sit down. Yeah.
Thanks for watching the show. Make sure you follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, we're on LinkedIn, we're on X, we're on all of them. So give us a like and a subscribe to any social media you can find us on. Yep. We're on YouTube, we're on all the podcast networks. So please give us likes, subscribes, and engage with the material. It helps drive the algorithm. So we got to feed the beast, and that's how the show gets out. Please tell people, like, and share. Please share. So
yes, absolutely. And remember, your service matters.